I'm a musician, and I said this yesterday. I'll probably repeat a few of the same things I said yesterday today. But it always did make sense. Every musician in the world, from Mick Jagger to Willie to... Wrong. Everyone but Marty Raney goes, check, 1, 2. Come on, give me a break. So I'm every sound man's nightmare. I'll play music in Alaska. I'll walk up to the stage. The mic will fall out. And then I go, sound check. Guy goes, I go, if a chicken and a half laid an egg and a half every other day and a half, how long would it take a grasshopper with a wooden leg to kick the seeds out of a pickle? Meanwhile, the sound man's like, what the? This is going to be a rough hour. So the sound in this place sounds amazing, frankly. And the sound system out there where the music is might be the best I've ever heard in my life. So leave it to a musician to throw a festival where the sound, for the first time in my life, in a tent or on a stage is probably the best I've ever heard. I don't normally carry a purse or a man bag. Thank you. Anytime in the next hour or so that I can't think of the right word, feel free to insert it. What? What? Immerse. I've never heard that before. Who said that? Could you please not heckle me the rest of the time? I'll probably put that on the show and give you no credit. But this guy just was nice enough to give me this on the way over here, so let's get rid of it. I'm supposed to talk about hacks and tips. I don't know if we're going to do that. Let's have fun instead. What's going on with this? Did Mickey Rooney speak earlier? All right. I'm humbled to be standing in Tennessee because I was in Alaska 48 hours ago working on our 40 acres, putting in more fence because we got some stubborn mules, clearing more land, and just, in fact, I didn't finish planting the seed for that new probably 10,000 square foot pasture we put in. I had to take a shower, get on a plane. Anchorage is about an hour away, and drive, international airport. And that's where we go. And then we get on a plane and go God knows where. And my kids are enjoying a break, so they're not here. We just wrapped, it seemed like we film year round, we just wrapped season 12, 15 episodes, completely in the can, and it's up to Discovery to decide when they want to put them on the air. But, let me tell you, that was nice of you. You don't have to applaud. But thank you. Let me tell you something about festivals, crowds, airports. I never saw it coming where children and young kids would walk up and say, we watched the show. A lady just told me that's the only thing she lets her child watch. He gets 3 choices. One was, was a cartoon. The other one was a documentary thing. And our show. I'm like, what? This kid needs a new mom. I mean, the show is crazy, I know. And you won't believe this, but there's many episodes I've never seen. And Misty never watches the show. Misty doesn't even own a phone. And that isn't a good thing. It is the 21st century, Misty. Very hard to get a hold of her all the time. But this is what she's chose, so. My point, she doesn't really watch the show. She's not, I think just recently she might have responded to the first person on social media. If it's one of you, you're really blessed. Because everybody comes out to me, how do you contact Missy? We want a hat, But she's just living her life. Oh yeah, I've got to go to Tennessee and work on a homestead, and goes back and goes straight to Kauai to surf, or back to her cabin on the 40 acres in Alaska. Name that tune. Name. Who said it? Sir. I mean, yeah, we're not going to do a lot of clapping, and we're not going to do that. We'll save that for the next guy. But we're going to have some fun because we brought a lot of books and we sold out. We brought some CDs, as we're all musicians in our family. I'm the only guy in the world to take a guitar to the top of Denali, where we're also the husband and wife and all 4 kids that have climbed to the top of Denali. Nothing to brag about, trust me. Just trying to talk to an audience of people and justify, maybe to me more than you, frankly, why I'm up here and not sitting right there looking up at one of these other speakers, which I'd be happy to do. But I guess over the 50 years in Alaska, we've led a allegedly adventurous life, and we live off grid. None of it was done for TV. I got on TV because of that big mountain, Denali, McKinley, 20,320 feet. And early on in the 80s when I climbed it, as I became a mountain guide, 21-day expeditions, I would take a guitar on my back. Why not? I'll tell you why not. They're heavy. You ever seen that Martin guitar shaped like a wine bottle? You know, it's really skinny. That's not the one I took. I took a 12-string, large body Ibanez. Cuckoo. But that's the guitar I took the first few climbs, and I took a regular-sized guitar. The point, people saw that. Next thing you know, the advent of social media, the internet, and the 90s, and then everybody wanted a show after Deadliest Catch. Every producer in Alaska wanted that Alaska hit show. That's why you see all these terrible Alaskan shows. Those producers didn't care what show. They just wanted their show. They wanted the money. And yes, Alaska is marketable, but I ended up on an adventure show, Ultimate Survival Alaska. Greatest adventure ever for a poor Alaskan to be paid or have it, your transportation paid to these crazy locations. From the gates of the Arctic, above the Arctic Circle, to Southeast Alaska, crossing Baranof, Chichikov, Admiralty Island, the Alaska Range, the Chugach Range, the Talkeetna Range. I mean, that was a 3-year, 36 episodes at Nat Geo. Rupert Murdoch woke up one day, wasn't making enough money. So he killed that show, fired everybody at National Geographic, but after 3 years, I realized that I could make a better. I'm not big at the word I or saying I could do anything better than anyone. But after 3 years, I realized after being consulted to make that show at National Geographic, never compensated for it. That's fine. That this was kind of we kind of put this together. And so I started pitching shows about what we did and what we built. Unique things with log buildings, log structures, decorative masonry, just crazy stuff. Just why not? Be creative. Pitching some of these videos to producers, immediately Discovery was interested. Like on a Monday. Friday night, they were like, yeah, we like this. You're crazy. And I wasn't trying to be crazy. We're just trying to have fun at work. Friday night, of course, I'm in Alaska, and this was back in the days of Skype, just came in. And they were like, hey, you have kids? Yeah, I've got 4 kids. And so they said, the network is freaked out. Are they all as venturesome as you? I said, they're more. I'm the loser of the family. I'm the slacker. And so ultimately, Monday morning, we had a show. It wasn't the adventure show, it was the build show. So here we are. 12 seasons later. Now, I just got off the phone out there. They want to do season 13. And I'm going to tell you the facts, the truth. I don't want to leave Alaska. I don't want to leave. But after seeing the support of the show, the little children, I think about how many people that the show helps. And what believe it or not, it's a motivator in my decision to go back starting in July for season 13. So I'm really saying, thank you, because, and we'll start with the kids, because so many families and children have walked up to me. It's just like reminded me of the very first child years ago that walked up, and I was like, that's weird. Why is that 5-year-old literally watching the show and it's his favorite thing? Reluctant to sing my own praises, believe it or not. The network, you would think it would be really excited about this, but sometimes they nonchalantly say, out of all the show, hundreds, out of all the shows, one stands above all the rest as far as the audience, that's you, and the social media interaction, which is a terrible place. But this show is the only show that has virtually 100% positive feedback. What show does Discovery Channel put on Thanksgiving for a marathon? Well, I was going to say some shows. I won't. But they do put on Homestead Rescue. So year after year, on holidays, Christmas, when people and families are home, I believe, no one asked me, but I believe they feel that's safer. It's safer, popular, safer, family-oriented, perhaps. So yeah, I'm grateful to Discovery for the opportunity. They realize that I'm not comfortable with L.A. rains, and they've really loosened them. They've had 1,000 opportunities to fire me, believe me. But I just wanted it to stay simple. A nice, normal-ish family leaves Alaska and goes and helps another normal family that could use as the expression goes, hand up and not a handout. That's it. Just as long as we keep it, thank you. As long as we keep it in those confines, lives will be changed. We'll be inundated with unusual challenges. We'll try to figure it out and hopefully ride off in the sunset. And the people's not property, not buildings, not coops, not landscape of the land obviously changes. But what I never again saw coming was in 1 week's time, maybe 8 days, in 1 week's time, the people are changing more than the land, more than their homestead, more than the literal buildings, the visceral, inward marriages, personalities, relationship with their children. I've watched it change in 7 or 8 days, and it's really strange to stand here and talk about a TV show that could do that. Very strange. Have you ever played baseball? Okay, this is your reward. So this is me on top of Denali with my guitar, 20,320 feet, playing the guitar. There you go. Name this tune. Who said it? What did you say, sir? You said what? Did you just say 3 fish tenders? Check, please. Who said who did you get it first? Come on up here. Unless you've played baseball. There you go. I'm happy to give them away. We sold out on the books, and that was very nice of you. So we have, there's a lot of CDs. We're not leaving this stage without giving them all out. happily. The other CD is this. I don't know if you can see it, but you ever see the movie Into the Wild? So Chris McCandless was a young man who he had the wanderlust. He was probably trying to figure out who he was. When you start burning, $12,000 or $20,000 in cash and hitchhiking around, there's something going on. Well, he ends up in Alaska, and then he finds his way to Fairbanks, and he wants to live out in the woods, live out exactly what we all want to do, frankly. It's what I want to do, wanted, and still want to do. It's my goal to live like that. He gets a ride from Fairbanks down to a road called the Stampede Trail. I know it well. And on the Stampede Trail, he goes out, walks out. The guy lets him out of the car, and the guy notices how much food you got. And I believe that gentleman gave him the driver of the car, gave him his sandwich and something that he had for lunch. I mean, that's what an Alaskan or a Tennessean or you would do if you saw somebody come into your rural country, right? I mean, you might take mine. The guy gave it to him, recognizing that he might be ill-prepared. He walks out, Chris McCandless walks out down the Stampede Trail, paved, then dirt, then a trail. Stampede, under the gold miner umbrella, gets its name because of the gold mining back a long time ago, 100 years ago-ish. And this bus shuttled miners to the mine and back. But this is rugged country. This bus only hauled one group of miners, one only, and broke down. And it's been there ever since. He stumbles out there, crosses some very daunting rivers. And when you cross a river alone, it's really scary. If you cross it with two people, there's a way to do it where the one person can kind of anchor you, and you have a better chance. If you do it with three, it's even safer. But he was by himself, and he actually made it across the rivers. These rivers are glacial melt that come off that big mountain. So the Stampede Trail is in the shadow of Denali. 20,320 feet. Glaciers that are 5,000 foot thick. It's a big place. It's a wild country. He takes up residence in this bus, and he tries to live. Of course, he runs out of food, probably quickly. He kills a moose, it rots. He tries to forage, and he's getting skinnier. And every Alaskan that I've ever met talks badly about him, like people would do, kick a man while he's down. I've never been into that. I've always been for the underdog because to this very moment, I've always felt like, not apologizing, but I've always felt like the underdog myself. 104 days later, he dies. He's too weak to get back across those raging rivers. They're torrent, melting glaciers. They're dangerous. I crossed them. Sad. And weeks later, some hunters found him, and that was the beginning and end of Chris McCandless. He renamed himself Alexander Supertramp. So I was intrigued by this story, and National Geographic tracked me. I rode a horse out to the river, parked the horse, and I waded the river and went out to the bus, and then I slept in the very bed that Chris died in the bus. Spent the night, and it was very meditative, contemplative. Not so much that, I'm not that guy. When I say I don't know if I am. But what was really cool, and I never had known, is that every square inch of that bus, I'm talking, look at that bus, it's kind of big. Every square inch of that bus inside there, nice seeing you. Did you ever go out there? Yeah. I met this gentleman yesterday. That's actually that gentleman with the long white hair is a legend. There's a thing in Alaska called old pilots and bold pilots, but there's no old, bold pilots. That guy has survived a lifetime of flying in Alaska, and not just regular flying, through the mountains, in the villages, and he leaves Alaska only to come down here and be a crop. I'm sorry to point you out like that, but I mean, you're way cooler than me. So we just gotta call it like it is. So as many travels as you'd had, I thought I'm sure you flew over it. That said, so I wrote a song called "If That Bus Could Talk," and made my second album. And we'll be giving that. You can, when you come up here, you can. Should you? What? Oh, sorry. Now that's going to happen a lot. I quit drinking, and I don't smoke weed, but I do forget where I'm at in conversations. Forgive me. Thank you. Feel free to do that. What'd you say? What? Oh, every square. Very nice to see you and your beautiful children. You have more? Okay. Every square inch of that bus on the inside, literally, from all over the world, you name the country, and that person came from that country, made their way out to the bus, flew a helicopter, drowned trying to get there, fact, frostbite trying to get there, near-death experience trying to get there. This is the impact this kid had on people. Not unlike, there's a thread of this gentleman, Alexander Supertramp, running through everybody that wants to live like us. There is. Trying to break away from the city, break away from the norm, break away from the trend. Do things on your own. Seek your own counsel. Be independent. Be free. Self-sufficient, self-reliant. That's Chris McCandless, 101. Lived 104 days. I've sat in more than one conversation in Alaska where they're all bad-mouthing him, and I'll say, can you guys name one person that lived 104 days alone in the Alaskan wilderness? And they're like, no. And I know some pretty tough guys. And my son is probably the toughest, not Matt. My son, Miles, is the toughest person I know in Alaska. Leave it at that. So, yeah, it would take a lot to live 104 days. It would take a lot to forage. It would take a lot to survive. But he got too weak. He couldn't make it across the river, went back to the bus, and died. Sad. So I think about him from time to time. I loaded these CDs up, and I was like, yeah, I remember that experience of going to the bus. And I wanted to take something away from the bus. Every square inch inside that bus is a note, a poem, Thoreau, Emerson, Lake and Palmer? No. Thoreau, poets, something scratched and scrawled and written, pencil, magic marker, nail. Complete strangers talking to a dead man, frankly, of how, they can relate. They want to do that. They admired what he did. And I was just thinking that without getting romantic, I think there's a definite connection with me and many people when it comes to what he was looking for and what he did. It takes sacrifice, and he didn't find it was it Carthage, North Dakota or South? Thank you. He didn't find it in Carthage, North Dakota, but he called that base. he met a man named Wayne Westerberg. He became kind of his friend. All of Chris's mail and belongings were there. I've never been there. There's a museum dedicated to Chris McCandless in Carthage, North Dakota. Who said North? North, okay. I've talked to Wayne on the phone many times. I've talked to Chris McCandless's mother. I've talked to Chris McCandless's, I'm not sure that's proper English. I've talked to the sister of Chris McCandless. And yeah, it's just a very moving story to this day. I mean, this was like, 30 years ago, something like that, and still impacting people. So I decided to get the permit to take the bus out. Lots of controversy in Alaska about the people dying, freezing, having to be rescued on the way out there. So I thought, I'm going to apply for the permit and take it out. So I contacted Discovery, and Discovery did a double backflip. Probably would have been one of their biggest projects that ever happened at the network, according to them. But I just wanted to have an adventure. I met with the mayor of Healy at the closest part of where the Stampede Trail comes out. Got his blessing. I met with the firefighters, personally sitting with them like this, that had just done the last rescue, saving some Italians that had gotten frostbite in February. Trying to get to the bus. And after I convinced myself, talking to Chris's mother, sister, and Wayne Westerberg, everyone's blessing, I applied for the permit. Then I started getting pushback from the state of Alaska, because it would make them look bad that they never did anything with this bus for 30 years, let people die, let people, your tax dollars-ish, pay for the rescues, etc. And they never did a thing. And the very first person that ever applied to get that bus out of there, not set and boast, because I'd thought about it for 10 years, was me. So I forced their hand, but I didn't know it. We were filming an episode of Homestead Rescue on our Raney Ranch on our 40 acres. I was walking from the river up to the cabin. My phone rang. I pulled it out, and I was like, yeah, who? And this is the state of Alaska. Yeah? Your bus is out. What? Your bus is out. It was a lady's voice, so that's not... I could lie to you and say it was a man, but I remember now that it was a lady. Who is this? This is the state of Alaska. We just had the military fly your bus to the Stampede Trail. So now it's sitting in Fairbanks. I had to call Wayne's mom, Wayne Westerberg, Chris, because I had this big plan of we were going to take it to Carthage at the museum and restore it and maybe let it travel to the colleges and high schools. Because whether you know this or not, English classes teach that or read that book in their curriculum. But all was taken away from us because of the governor didn't even know this was happening. So I called these two legislators that I was working with, and I said, I'm dumbfounded. I mean, what? Why? What? Not very smart. And they said, the legislators in Juneau, the capital, said, Marty, you don't want to know. Verbatim. And I said, I do want to know. And they said, they did it to rub your nose in it. So the bus is out. They robbed us of a great adventure. Our plans for the bus are different. To rescue it with a huge helicopter, dual prop, probably a Chinook or some type of military, they cut huge holes in the top 4 places to grab the frame. They cannibalized the bus. I don't want to be that guy and say I'm good and they're evil, but something political took place there, secretive and kind of weird, but nonetheless, my experience in the bus as it sat in the wild in the middle of nowhere lives on forever in that photo. And I relate a bit to Chris McCandless. Money's overrated. I'm not a fan of the American dream. I've met more than one. I only met one person in the last 2 days here where they said, I'm going to college 4 years. What are you going to, just now? And if you're sitting in the audience, don't take it personally at all. But the young lady said, I don't know. 4 years, you don't know. I get it. But 4 years from now, can you imagine the prices of houses and rent? I'm building houses in Alaska, one house in Alaska right now. We have rentals in Alaska. It's crazy. We're not very smart. We include the utilities and probably get ripped off. But I have my finger on the pulse of the construction world. So this young lady 4 years from now, what's she going to do for work? Is she going to live in the subdivision, the cookie cutter houses? Is she going to be married? And they've got 2 brand new cars that they're paying for in the driveway. This is what I see everywhere I go. Doesn't matter if I'm in Alaska, Florida, Maine, California, Washington, Midwest, Missouri, Minnesota. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. Everything's kind of sketchy. Everything's going up. And I'm a little bit worried about this young lady or others that don't know there's another lifestyle. There's an alternative to this alleged American dream. And you guys, the cat's out of the bag here at this festival, which, by the way, this thing is amazing. This thing, I'm not a brown noser, but I'm forced to say that whoever's running this thing, and we know, I believe it's Rory Feek, but I'm sure there's a lot of people involved, right? But it's first class, and it seems like every aspect of an independent life, homesteading, self-sufficiency, self-reliance is represented here everywhere. And the people that have been speaking, I've listened to a couple. It's amazing. I was supposed to talk about hacks and tips. You don't want to hear that. Hacks and tips are overrated. There's a place for them. It's called YouTube. You get them there. I often refuse to go there, and not certainly not bad-mouthing YouTube. Trust me. I think we have a YouTube channel. So there you go. But I'm more, let's figure it out. Let's figure this challenge, this problem out. When it comes to buying property, most of us are limited by our money. If you're just starting out, right? You don't have a lot of money. If you do, you're going to be on a lakefront, view property, river. You're going to go for it. But a lot of us don't. So I find people, at least the ones we help, find a rural property, and guess what? There's no water. Or at least they haven't found the water. Or we found properties that were already strip mined. The network won't let us tell you that. Oh, this property was strip mined once and it's contaminated. But we find that, I'll tell you the truth. So the number one thing in all the books that sold out over there, I just talk about the basics, not so much about the, no disrespect if someone in the audience is the one that assigned me to talk about hacks and tips. But I look at the each individual homesteader, property, couple, whatever it is, and and just listen. We got a short period of time to figure stuff out. But I will tell you this: what I've learned in all these travels, I get Alaska. Make no mistake about it. 50 years below zero. I get that. I haven't figured it out yet, but I get it. I feel that it qualifies us a little bit when we travel. We're not the hardest place, but it's one of them to make a go of it. You can't drive to our place. There's a pretty significant, as we speak, raging, death-defying river that separates us from civilization. We spent the first 10, I don't know how many years, with a cable car. I crossed that river with a cable over my shoulder. Matt was spooling out the 5/8 cable. I went to the other side. I choked to big spruce tree, which 5 years later got killed by the beetle kill infestation. So then we were forced to come up with something else. No more big trees over there. They all were killed and became unsafe, and now they're gone. But the next step was a 100-foot sketchy free span. We live in a King Salmon River area, so I got to be real careful about being too cowboy. They'll come crashing down. And we discovered they didn't know. They tried to find laws, permits, to maybe, I shouldn't say that. That's not true, actually. They didn't have the answers, and even the state of Alaska was surprised that I had carte blanche. Yeah, we can't find one rule or law that says you can't free span this river, but we can't put anything in it you can't have abutments. We can't find any laws. Well, what they didn't know, I already built it. It was already in. But to hear that news, whew. So we have a 100-foot footbridge. It's 4 feet, 1 inch. 4 feet, 1 inch wide, 100 feet. We have mules, and a 1,200-pound mule, that thing, you're praying that 100-foot free span out of 2-inch tubing with a plywood floor, plywood just like this. As we speak, I'm trying to upgrade that bridge. I can't find any beams. I've been looking for a couple years. The point, it's always a challenge. It's always a challenge. You step up to the plate, you got to get to the plate. And then not every pitch is perfect. But when you swing, and I don't want to be a corny speaker, but I think about life this way. When you swing, how hard are you swinging? And it's okay to miss. Every property I ever built in Alaska with 4 children, from raising them, even now on the 40 acres, it wasn't the first thing we built, but I got it in about 2 years ago, was a playing field. Baseball, football, soccer, you got to have a place to play. So we just had a baseball game the other day. My point, you got to swing for the bleachers, and you can't strike out through the history of our family, all the kids, you can't strike out. Keep swinging, and I feel that way. I think of, strangely, I think of the game baseball a lot in life. If you don't really have to strike out, but you do have to keep swinging, and then how hard are you going to swing, Homesteaders we visit, not swinging very hard sometimes. They gave up. They swing a lot. They didn't strike out, but they're tired. To be honest, a lot of the people we visit ran out of money. I've been broke my whole life. My wife hates it when I say that. I guess we weren't broke, but, I was a residential contractor, and I should have went commercial. So I can relate to people struggling on a small piece of property, a medium size, and a big one. But we never judge. We meet these people. I said this yesterday. When we film an episode of Homestead Rescue, we've never met these people. There's never been a nudge, nudge, hint, hint. Skype, what is it? Not Skype now. What is it? Zoom. Hey, let's do this and we'll do that. And you say that. Never. When we meet those people, we're walking down the driveway with you. I mean, the camera, and it's behind our shoulders, or they're set and we drive in, and we meet these people for the first time, and we listen to these problems. We discover all this crazy stuff. My dad, how would we say it in this audience? My dad committed suicide. And this well, was one of the reasons he did it. I don't know, whoa. Day one, 900-foot well, never got a drop of water out of it. So much trouble, breaking off with a driller, fighting with people over the money, running out of money, and then taking your own life? Come on. What the heck? We left the city life because my daughter was in a ground and there was a drive-by shooting. Day one, we hear things like this. So now you have empathy, sympathy for these complete strangers immediately. And I think that after all these seasons, they trust us. They should. We're on their side. We came a long ways to help them. And strangely, the more they share with us, the harder we want to work. And we're always thinking, as soon as the camera shuts off, we're still working. Camera crews have a union to ascribe to, if that's the right word. They have a union that keeps, their hours at 12 hours a day. By the way, people on TV work hard, can work hard. On our show, they work hard. But we're still working. I've worked every day off of the show, not bragging and not complaining, unpaid. I've never taken a lunch break on the show, not set and boast, but just because there's work to be done. We're working. We got a lot to get done because we just met, that family whose dad flew out there to Hawaii to help them raise their children on a MacNut farm they just bought. But he had a heart attack on the steps right there, and now she's got nobody. That episode's coming out with 15 or so probably in the next couple months. That girl was beautiful, by the way. And what a adventuresome spirit. Beautiful children. Husband left her after they bought a 60-acre MacNut farm. So she's like, what? But she's like, I'm going for it. Her history was that she was a commercial fisherman in Alaska. So that told me a lot. So wait and see what happened over there. The people drive this show. I don't even like saying the word I. I've probably said it more in this chat than normal. I love the word we. It's better and it's more truthful. But I don't drive the show. We don't drive that show. But the people that need the help do. I tell them that on day one. Whether you believe it or not, this is your episode. Tell us what you want. Don't tell us what you don't want. But the more you share with us about things we need to do here, I can do it off camera. I can work late. We've got an excavator. We've got a skid steer. Take advantage of me. Work me hard. Ride me hard. Put me away wet. And they're in disbelief that people, strangers, are going to come that far and help them. It's crazy. I take it for granted. I know what we're going to do. We're going to hit the ground running. But and they often say at the end, we had no idea. I mean, we didn't know. It's a TV show. But ultimately, in fact, it is. But ultimately, and I think even the network is surprised where you, the audience that supported it religiously, faithfully, loyally, drive the amount of sponsors that want to come and advertise, and that's what makes a TV show. In a 1-hour show, there's 20 minutes of commercials. Yikes. The network was like, we want to see if Homestead Rescue can hold an audience for, are you ready? 2 hours. And I thought, well, how come nobody consulted me? That's never going to fly. People will trail off. It's over. But from that first episode of 2 hours till now, the network's been in shock because the audience stays for the entire 2 hours. In fact, the audience grows. It's never happened in the history of Discovery. So said that producer that was roaming around with me yesterday. The audience grows instead of trailing off. This is not said and boast. It's said that the people get it. It's not Naked and Afraid. It's not Gold Rush. On that note, you're going to like this, maybe. There we were in the 70s, 1974, when I went to Alaska, logging. I'd quit school at 16 in North Bend, Washington, and I was a high lead logger for a couple of years, made my way to Alaska. How did I get there? Funny you should ask. I knew a man that was the captain for Alaska Airlines. He lived in Seattle, but he had started his career in remote Alaska, and I heard all these stories. So I quit school, not recommended, and don't do drugs. Sorry. Isn't that what they say? But this gentleman said, you know, I knew his sons, same age. And he goes, you know, if you ever go to Alaska, tell me, and you can go on one of my flights. I make the decision to go. I tell him, I'm on the plane. I've never flown before in my life. I think I'm 17. And I'm halfway back on the right, on the aisle, and the cockpit opened. This was an intimidating man. He was very wide, lots of black hair, eyebrows, stern looking, intimidating. And here he comes out of the cockpit, down the aisle. I didn't know. He came to me and he went, you. Well, the people didn't know who I was. I followed him into the cockpit. And I went to Alaska in the cockpit of a 737 Alaska Airlines jet. It landed at Ketchikan, and for 50 years, below zero, it's been an adventure of a lifetime. In fact, people come there and they'll spend 2 weeks or bear hunt, or not that I am a big fan of bear hunting, but bear hunt, catch a salmon, a halibut, moose hunt, whatever it is, and they go, we had the adventure of a lifetime. But me, our family, I think, has had in Alaska a lifetime of adventure after adventure. I want to consider this an adventure, frankly, because of that big mountain and National Geographic. We can't dismiss that from the equation, the adventure. But what we did for a living was building. We've always been, I think, giving. The nature of the kids and the family. Never had a lot. Happy to help anybody. I was a low bidder for 50 years. 50 years, the low bidder. Not a very romantic legacy, but we did a lot of nice work, a lot of creative work, a lot of crazy work that ultimately got us to this stage, to homesteads, and frankly, just practicing what we preach. Name that tune. What is it? Young lady with the cowboy hat. Who was it? Come on up here. And that lady with the cowboy hat that I pointed out. Come on. Okay, girls. You want to climb to the top of the mountain or spend a night in the bus? Mountain? That's a good choice. You're welcome. Good manners. You want to climb to the top of Denali, or you want to spend a night in the McCandless bus? Want to go to the bus? Be careful. You have 2 questions? Very good question. They helicoptered it out with a huge... Oh, back in the day? Very good. They probably drug it in there in the winter on ice. But when they started using that bus to haul its first busload of miners, it broke down, and that infamous bus has been sitting there since 1930, I'll guess, 5. Wild, huh? Any more questions? Nice hat. So when it comes to, what was the name of that song again? Oh, yeah, that one. So have you guys ever done the math? Have you ever looked into your past? Do you know that most of you come from a homesteading ancestry? Do you know this? I think everybody at this place would probably know that. at a gathering like this. So homesteading's in your past. Fact, big time. Millions of people applied for the homestead deed. You had to cough up $18 thanks to Abraham Lincoln, who decided that every man in that climate, every race, every man, every person would have a fair chance. That was the wording, fair chance at success. Leave it to us to exploit a beautiful program, which it was ultimately by the railroads and rich people and bankers of the era. But that said, notwithstanding, the very first homestead was, in fact, in Nebraska, where that gentleman cleared the land, built the cabin, ran back there, and he received Beatrice, Nebraska, the first homestead deed, 160 acres, buddy. It's yours. How important is that? Well, pretty important to Nebraskans, because as we speak, that homestead is a national park. It's cool. I went there last year, very impressed. Why was I impressed? Because they have a 20, 30-minute video, and the first 10 minutes is truthful, that Abraham Lincoln gave away land already owned by, what? Yeah. So any North American indigenous First Nations were allowed, I think, in Alaska to say Indian and Eskimo. But I am not of that category, demographic. But I always feel compelled to, frankly, apologize or at least acknowledge that all of this beautiful land was once yours. If I lived in that time, I'm not sure what I would have done. But I know, standing here, that I certainly recognize what was lost, who was hurt, what we did to get that homestead land. There was about 1 million windmills put up across America, 1 million windmills, because you needed water to survive, right? And one thing I've learned on the show is being told we don't have water, we can't get water. I'm telling you right now, I'm shocked at how many times we've struck water. Now, if you're of the mind that water, let's use the word as it's called, divination, is real, knock yourself out. I won't allow it on the show. But what I have done on the show is the obvious. I went to the lowest part of a property. I've talked to the neighbors, the locals, who's lived there the longest. Find out what the well depths are within 10 miles. And then I'll start digging with an excavator. And I'm going to tell you that 99% of the time we've struck water. It's completely crazy, but true. In 2 times on this last 12, season 12 that's coming out, who knows when, soon, completely in the can, ready to go. 2 of those episodes, feeling a little cocky. I dug down as deep as a 20. You could dig with a 200, maybe 18, 20 feet deep. No water, dry as a bone. Even though the property flooded and nobody could, Alaska, and nobody could figure out where the water was coming from. Saw the videos of it flooding. The river was a mile away or 2. Was that flood water coming from the river? I didn't know. Dug down thinking but the river was, I got the elevation of her property and that river 2 miles away, and I was like, we got to go like 80 feet. So I looked around for well drillers, couldn't find them. Why? Everybody's busy. So I dug down deep as I could go. That's a deep hole. Straight down with the excavator. Night shift without the camera. Dry. Went the next morning hoping something seeped in. dry. Shucks. So, but I thought, well, did I try everything I could? I mean, when I stand on a platform and tell people, never quit, don't quit before you start, cliches and, bombastic statements. You got to practice what you preach. So I backed the excavator up and I dug as far as I could with the excavator and went down to that level. And then I started digging down deeper. And I'm getting chills. And we struck water, all the water in the world. This is a wife taking care of three kids in the harshest place ever, Salcha, Alaska, 70 below zero, guaranteed 60, and 50 is not uncommon. She chose to live there, and her name is Krista, and that episode's coming out as well. Pardon the expression. But we struck water. So then we had to dig a water line. Guess what? This part of Alaska has what's called permafrost. And have you ever heard of the Ice Age? Guess what? Alaska is still in it. So you could literally in many areas of Alaska, even in a big town like Fairbanks, second largest city next to Anchorage, you could literally dig down, hit something that feels like concrete. It is. It's frozen ground. So we had to dig that water line. So it's one thing after another. I had to heat I've got 7 days. Had to put a space heater down there, tent it, thaw the ground, dig a little bit, thaw the ground. But we got it in 7 days, introduced into our house water. Crazy. Shouldn't have told you that. Sorry. Should have stopped myself. What happened? But the point, be it ever so humble, no place like home. Some people are on the waterfront, the lakefront, the riverfront, the view. This lady didn't have a lot of money, has a nice little 10 acres in the middle of nowhere, mosquito-infested, fire trap, hazard, small beetle-killed forest, really close together. We tried to clear some of that away from her, give her a safe space, as it's called, defensible space. But she chose there, and she won't leave. A lot of times I'll ask the people privately, you sure you want to pursue this? You want to live here? And I'm thinking, as I recall, 100% want to stay, want to live, want to make it go. I think it's 100%. So that's all we have to hear, and so we try to get him to that point. But water is there, is my point. It's there most of the time. Yes, a 900-foot well is the deepest challenge we've ever had. I've got 7 days and a limited budget. How do you get water out of that? This episode has already aired, so you know. Water in the well, static they call it, the level of the water when everything's calm, was about 300 feet. You can't put plastic well pipe 900 feet. The weight of the water, right, 8 point whatever gallons a pound, 8.3, what is it? What's water? 8.3, I think. But we'll say 8. I'm going with this guy. 8, thank you. 8 gallons times what's in the volume of a pipe, it adds up so fast it'll blow your mind. So I've got water at 300 feet. I got a well 900 feet. I got a week to do it and a very limited budget. So what we do is we don't get him the 900 feet of water. We go down as far as we can. And that's water was at 180 feet, forgive me. So 180 feet from the surface was water in the pipe. Okay. What can we do? We don't have the budget to go 900 feet with galvanized pipe, which won't come apart from the weight, right? And you need a very significant pump, 2-horse pump, a lot of money to get that water that far, right? out of the ground. So what do? We just did what we could. We used plastic pipe, which you can do about 300 feet of plastic, and that's it. Any more pipe, you're going to hook it up. They might get water. You're going to ride off in the sunset, pat yourself on the back, and that entire insulation is going to snap off and go 900 feet in the bottom of that well, guaranteed, with the pump and the pipe. Trust me. So we got them the water they needed. They didn't get, what would a 6-inch well casing be? 800 feet of water would be 400 gallons of water. 400 gallons of water is in the pipe with the recovery, right? Endless supply. But they had, they got all the water they needed, right? So be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. People pick some crazy places without water. But what I have found out all across this country, Canada included, of course Alaska, and Hawaii. Nope, not Hawaii. It's all lava. Tough place to find water this way. Well, Hawaii is about rain catchment. If you know anything about the Hawaiian Islands, there's mansions that collect their water off the roof. That's how you do it. Lots of rain on every island. You start getting to the dry side, you're going to be putting in a well. Expensive. So we have found water in places I was convinced it wasn't. So if you're on a property where you've told yourself, I think there's a spring, or someone told me there used to be, start digging. There's water everywhere. Planet Earth, there's water everywhere. You drill far enough, you dig far enough, you're gonna hit water. Are we done? We good? Okay. So you got a piece of land, whether you had money or not, you gotta have the water, and I'm telling you, I've lived it. You probably do have the water. But not everyone's going to be that, and I wouldn't call it fortunate. Certainly not lucky. But the odds are with you that water's there. But you might be like that guy in Wyoming. It's 900 feet. You might find a little water at 300. You tell the guy to go deeper. Then that water goes away. Then you have no water. So, yeah, we've seen it all. Nightmares. But for the most part, water is there. Soil, get a pH test. You don't need to be a genius, right? It's either one side or the other. You fertilize that ground, cultivate that ground with whatever is logically, reasonably, simply required. You've got the growing season. Guess what? I don't. We just put the plants in. I shouldn't say we. I didn't do it. My wife and family put the plants in. I was building a week ago, maybe a week ago, and on that night it was 40 degrees, and it snowed in the mountains, fresh on the top, and we're like, no. That's after having them in the house, in the greenhouse, and putting them out, waiting, and then you pull the trigger. And then you're like, no. But I think we fared. I think we survived, dodged a bullet, if you will. So whether you're in Alaska where it's quite, even though we have all the daylight, it's a short season to pull it off. You guys don't have that problem. You have a long season. Look how hot it is. You can't grow something out here. Come on. Right? So you buy that raw piece of land. Don't do anything until you sort that water, even if it's rain catchment. And there's a lot of people, I see them everywhere I go. I see them in Alaska on my road, because there's areas on I live on Fishhook Road that goes into Hatcher Pass. We don't really have neighbors, but once you cross the river and go into the historic, touristy, beautiful state park pass, we have a 40-acre piece, and then there's no other land for eternity, seemingly. My point, on the way to our place, there's areas where people are, have very deep wells, expensive, so I see people hauling water all the time on my road from Wasilla or Palmer to our cabin. So my point, I knew we were in trouble when we, if you watch the show, burned to the ground and lost every single thing we own. My fault, actually, from a wood stove, old pipe I found on Marketplace. Why? Not a lot of money, in the day, trying to save, conserve, always scrounging. Don't do it. Never install a used wood stove. I never will. I did it on the show for years. I'll never do it again. No more used wood stoves. No more salvaged insulated pipe. Please. As a contractor, concrete, stone, mason, I've installed hundreds. I've probably installed more wood stoves than anybody I know. Certainly people have installed more than me. So I know how to install them, but if your pipe or your stove is faulty, it might minimize how well you installed it all if it's compromised. So I know there's people sitting here with a sketchy wood stove. I know it. So I would have it checked and don't go through what we did. That was a bad day. We burnt to the ground. And Molly and I fought that with I was cutting through the walls with a chainsaw, standing on a chair, and we had fire extinguishers off grid, right? You got to have them. Can't come up here. You can't travel around America and tell people what to do if you're not doing it. So fire extinguishers blazing away, emptied them, and I'm up there and it's smoky and sheetrock and wood and insulation's in my eyes, and I'm cutting straight overhead as high as I can, standing on a stool, trying to get at the fire, and give me another extinguisher. The smoke alarm's going to add to the drama. Just crazy. Your house is on fire. You can't get a fire truck there. We're off the grid. You got to walk. You're not going to walk. You can't get across the river. In fact, I'm not sure if our footbridge was in at the time. We might have been on the tram. But I think either way, you're not coming in a fire truck, right? And then I said, "Get me some water." And the second I said it, I remember vividly going, "Oh, that's why I cranked up the wood stove. The water was froze in the cabin." And at that second, I knew. I climbed off of there, set the chainsaw down, grabbed my little darling, and I said, "Honey, yeah, we're going to watch this thing burn to the ground." And we did. Crazy. But hopefully that never happens again. And it doesn't happen to you, because it could if you're in a place with a crazy wood stove or fireplace installation. Again, my installation, I would say, was legal to code for obvious reasons. But I had a crazy broken door on a wood stove, Blaze King, and old pipe. And the fire was something went wrong with at the insulated pipe going through the 2x12 rafters. So, on that happy note, we had already started on camera a log home on the cliff. We have 40 acres. Everybody in Alaska said, "That guy's an idiot." Me. It's inaccessible. It's only got that bottom. You're never going to get there. What? Well, we figured it out, and we're having a nice little life, burnt to the ground. One day, without a camera, I decided to buy an excavator, use 200 Hitachi, and scratch, literally. In fact, you talk about, people say I do dangerous things. I don't really think I do. I'm not making light of that. I probably should be dead from logging in my early days. And mountain climbing, by the way, I did have an accident there where someone died, and I've never been back to the mountain since 2012. Things do go wrong, but we had started this log cabin before we burned down on top, and I think that's on camera, on film, out there somewhere. And then we had to stop the construction because we had homesteads to visit. That's priority. So we stopped the construction, got on a plane, I don't know where we went, somewhere, and started doing another season. November, we burned to the ground. I called the network, and our home's blazing away. I said, we just burned to the ground. We are going to resume that cabin on the cliff tomorrow. If you want to film it, figure it out. Click. So they did. They sent a small crew up, media, They tracked the progress. Misty was in Kauai, in Alaska. I don't know how she got there that fast. Swam? But it seemed like I burned to the ground. The next day, Misty was there working. That was cool. My daughter, Melanie. That was weird. That was kind of weird. You ever do that? Okay. Thank you. How many kids do you have? I love that. I love that so much. I wish we had more, but I didn't know what I was doing back then. So 4 was good. Melanie came up from Girdwood, about 30 miles south of Anchorage. Miles lives on the 40 acres. Matt was there while it was still burning to the ground. We went to work the next day. We were homeless 30 days. It's on camera somewhere, one of those episodes, I think. But 30 days later, we were moved in. And it was all finished. I haven't really done anything since. A few things aren't done outside, but I haven't really done one thing on that cabin, so we moved in. So I feel when I visit, like we did, the car fire in California, the place was still smoking when we showed up. I feel we're qualified to help empathize and go, we know what you feel like. If they're broke, if they don't have water, if they're packing water, I get it. When we went to Paradise, helped a family, California, helped a family that almost burned up in the fire, but their house is was certainly gone. We can kind of relate to these people. So I'm not happy my house burned down or our house burned down, but life in general and 50 years where? Very good. Who said that? Who said it first? You thought it? Good enough. I quit watching Yellowstone. I can't take it anymore. I quit watching a couple years ago. Because, come on, what homestead has killed 20 people? And gone, I can't watch it. Plus, it's very vulgar. And when it first came on, so I started writing a screenplay, which I've only written it on airplane rides. I'm almost done. Thank you, Homestead Festival, because I worked on it flying here. I'm going to work on it flying home tomorrow. I'm almost done. About a year I've been working on it. But Taylor Sheridan reminded me there's still an audience for Western and values and ish and stuff. So I'm writing a screenplay. Don't applause. But I feel like I'm saying to you guys, are you going to the bus station or the train station? What do you want? What do you want to do? You want to go to the bus station? All right. What?
We're from Georgia, just like Chris.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Does Georgia ever acknowledge that, where he came from? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, after 30 years and a movie and books, it's less topical-ish. But we were trying to keep that alive. And to answer your question an hour later, it's in Fairbanks at the museum. And after that, I lost interest. But it's great. I just feel like we were robbed from an amazing adventure. We were going to take it out in February, so it would have been 30 below zero, no tundra, no beaver ponds, nothing would be hurt. I had it all figured out. And I'd heard through my lifetime in Alaska, other people say, we got the permit, every time somebody died getting out there. And then when I went to the state of Alaska, they told me, you're the first person who ever applied for this permit to get the bus out. So I just feel like that would have been such a great ongoing adventure. We hopefully would have got it out. And then as we speak, it might be sitting right out here. That was the plan. Let it travel. Let everybody experience the real one. But now you got to go to Fairbanks University, I think. That said, 30 days later, we moved in a cabin that wasn't ready. It had no power and no water. So we had to immediately figure out how to power and water it. The river runs year round, but it's covered in 3 feet of ice, open holes here and there, overflow, as it's called, and snow. We had, promise you, there in the last 2 years, is this 4 feet? Let's do it this way. That sheet of plywood's 4 feet. We got 5 feet. So, last couple years, 5 feet of snow. What? I'm an easy target, button your shirt like this, wearing white, but I didn't ever do one thing for TV, ever. Fact. Which one of you guys was dancing last night? You. Come on up here. That was amazing. Here, you play baseball? All right. Was that you? Was, yeah. Okay, that was great. So I built a deck at our homestead, and it's the most dangerous deck in the world. I'm sorry, but I just can't. I probably will put a railing on it, but I've been wanting, you're just so busy. And this is a caution for any workaholics out there. You got to stop and smell the roses, but I've been wanting to learn how to dance. I don't know. I'm a musician. I played 1,000 nights, but I don't know how to line dance or country dance or two-step. I can't. And I've been wanting to do it on that deck, but I think it needs a railing. So it's seeing you guys dance last night. I was like, gosh, I told myself I was gonna figure out dancing, but just the little things people don't know that you've given them something to think about, or you've inspired them. But believe it or not, last night I kept looking over there and go, I should have figured this out by now, but my deck will kill you. So that was interesting. Thank you. No power, no water. So we got some solar panels, but it's November. And the sun does hit. The old cabin that burnt down, the sunlight never touched that cabin for months. It's light outside, but no sunlight. So no power, right? Generator, candles, roughing it, which is fine. We're fine with it. Up on top, you could actually see year round. Shortest day of the year is? Who said it? Come on up here. You want to go to the bus or the mountain? Well, you got to pick. Quick. You're going to the mountain. All right, so while we're in this mode, don't let me forget, what was I talking about? Cabin. Thank you. What's your name? Sylvia? Good name. Reminded me of an old song. Remember, I met these guys in Alaska. Sylvia's mother, Dr. Cook. Very good. Yeah, Dr. Hook, yeah. So you ever seen that guy? He's this tall, patch over his eye, and a cane. Sylvia's mother said, good song. Where were we? What? Solar. So it's easy. It's easy now. You buy solar panels, get an inverter, get some batteries, and we actually make power in Alaska on the shortest, December 21st, the shortest day of the year. What a blessing. It's amazing. So getting an excavator, scratching it, risking my life, which I did on that, without any cameras, family, or nobody. It's a miracle that we got up the cliff, accessed the top 20 acres, that the crazy guy, stupid guy bought the 40. And now I'm sure it's, millions of dollars of value, but we don't care about money. We care about lifestyle and the type of lifestyle that we're living. That's the one we want. And by the way, it's not for everybody, right? It's not for everybody. I just drove through a subdivision in Alaska that I knew it was over there. I saw all the commotion. And as a contractor, I kept wondering, when am I going to get a call to work over there? Concrete, logs, post and beam, stuff we do. We do it all, but that's probably the main income. And lo and behold, I drove over there, and there's $1 million homes. Nobody ever called me. I don't know why. I don't even know why I'm telling you. You hurt my feelings. What am I, chopped liver? I thought we did good work, but it's kind of a new batch of builders from Anchorage. And we're not really Anchorage people. We're more Valley, Palmer, Wasilla, Matanuska, Hatcher Pass. But driving through there, these houses are sweet. They're nice, they're big, they're like mansions, but they're this far apart. Some are probably from there to here. And I'm thinking, if they gave me that entire subdivision for free, but I had to live there, I wouldn't entertain that thought for a second. What's worth more than freedom and peace of mind and privacy and, a garden and a greenhouse and animals, which those people can't have all of that. And if they do, it's limited and policed. So it's not for everybody to live, as the theme of this assembly is called, homesteading. Not for everybody, but a lot of us. In fact, there's a ground swell going across America and the North that people, because perhaps of Dylan's prophetic phrase in a song out of the 60s. Want me to play it on the harmonica? The times they are changing, and they are. That was in the 60s. The problems then pale to insignificance to the problems that we might be going through. So knowing how to get some water, knowing how to be self-sufficient, knowing how to survive, knowing how to be independent and not rely on 100% the grid or the grocery store might mean your life. And that's a fact. I wouldn't have said this a year ago, and I wouldn't have thought of it in my entire life. But I say it off the top of Mount Denali or Everest, because a political person, just feeling like an outsider looking in at all of you, your world, it's disturbing. And after witnessing, I don't know if you believe in it, but I do, after witnessing COVID touch every single human being, almost 8 billion people on Earth, after standing back and watch all of you go through that globally, nothing would surprise me. So I never liked the phrase doomsday prepper. Never used it. And being the people we are, I never wanted to be associated with that demographic. But listen, they might have been right all along. That's a fact. So having water, food storage, a root cellar, knowing how to can or preserve, grow your own food. I don't think I'm out of line to say this. It could mean our very preservation. I believe that. So the times are changing. Anyone that has a semblance of homesteading in their back pocket is ahead of the game, is going to fare better. But someone, planning like there's nothing wrong with the world, and I'm going to college, and I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to buy a house, and it's going to be that close to that guy's, and we're going to all, race for what? Material possessions, money, what? Hold on, what? This might not be the era. It might not be the generation. It might not be the time. But again, we're all free, moral agents. We can do whatever we want-ish. And I am happy to associate with like-minded people that want to live closer to the land and all that brings back as a reward, right? You feed yourself, you feel better, you eat better, you live longer, there's less stress, right? All those words you hear at a place like this, maybe too much, but can you hear it too much? Freedom, independence, self-reliance, self-sufficiency, independence, all of it. It's all legit, it's true. And the harder you work at it, the closer you get to all of those. And collectively, a person's life is better. The family is stronger. You've passed on a work ethic and a lost way of life to your children. I mean, it's a privilege to see people like Jill Winger. You in the audience? She's probably not here. But I tried to get Jill Winger a TV show because I signed her, and then I pitched it to Discovery, and Magnolia got real interested, and then they dropped the ball. So, but I'm not giving up on Jill because can you imagine, look how busy she is, and look how dedicated she is, and look how amazing she is. But and she's younger than me, and she's beautiful, and if she could have a show, it would, I want to believe, inspire younger people, more ladies, young girls, whatever, to be like her and her kids. Again, recognizing all the values, all the benefits of a life not lived in the city, in the concrete, in the pavement. So that's the short version of why we live the way we do. All I wanted to do was live like an Alaskan should live. That's not your goal, but it's not dissimilar because it's kind of the same thing. I just want to live in the woods. I just want to have less people around. I just want to have a farm, maybe grow some food, have a greenhouse. I want to maybe have some animals, get our own eggs, right? You always start with chickens, right? Because anybody can do it, but chickens are amazing. Everybody says they're dumb. I don't believe that. I think the joke's on us a little bit. Every time I look at a chicken, I'm thinking, I'm like, hey, buddy, I'm not one of those. I don't think you're stupid. I think you're pretty doggone smart. And then next day, I get an egg. I'm serious. Every day. So if I'm not going to quit saying it, who knows what could happen. So we just got a new batch of chickens. Of course, we live in Alaska, so we got to get them from the States, as they call it, right? I don't really use these terms because I don't like being here and there and whatever, honestly. But Alaska refers to all of you as the lower 48 or the States. And I rarely use those expressions because, you're already off to a bad start. You're lower 48. And there's Alaskans that are very prideful about that, kind of like Texans. Who's bigger? What state? Just for the record, Texans, if you cut Alaska in half, that would make Texas the third largest state. Remember a minute ago when I said I wasn't that guy? I am that guy, a little bit. In fact, I built a guitar shaped like the state of Alaska. That's the one I play. I wanted to bring it, but it's such a... That wasn't the word I was going to use. And I was thinking of another B word. Huge. I'll go with huge. It's so huge. It's shaped exactly like the state of Alaska. It's this big. Southeast. Aleutian chain is 1,000 miles long. So it's pretty long on the guitar too. Big slab of wood. Bought a $500 neck. So it plays good. Plays well. To be proper. Plays well. Electric, of course. That's fine. We live off grid with power, solar. But building it, I had to have a black plastic pick guard, right? And they're all the same. There's over here a little loop over here. They're all the same. My pick guard, black, the state of Texas. So I have an Alaskan guitar out of natural birch, light, blonde, beautiful wood, but a black, smaller pickguard is in the center of it. Not that anybody's keeping track. But Alaska refers to the lower 48 with different expressions, but we rely on you. Think about us. Every 2 weeks, a barge goes up there with food, probably every week. I think I've heard it's every 2. You imagine if something goes terribly wrong with this world, and I think everyone in here might agree that it could. You imagine what Alaskans are going to do? I don't think we're in any position to refer to anybody as lower 48. We're going to be in big trouble. Maybe not the Alaskans that live in Homer or in Seward or in Ketchikan, Juneau, Petersburg, Wrangell, Haines, or Skagway on the ocean. But where I live, Anchorage has 250,000 people. So, how cool are Alaskans? Just because you live there? They too have to think about what the future holds. What if things go bad and that ship full of food doesn't come from the lower 48? This is how vulnerable some places are, including a place that's supposed to be cool, like Alaska. Every 2 weeks, here it comes. What if that's disrupted? So I think about that too for those that we work for in Alaska. Where's that root cellar? How's that garden? We've got 100 days to grow that garden. 100 days. How are we doing on time? What? We're over? Oh, well, let's wrap this up.